Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I will not be joined by my normal, typical co-host for this episode. It's a late Friday evening for us old heads. So I have joining me a very special co-host in Street Scores, Rico. Thank you for joining me, of course, Rico. And the
Thanks for
title
having
of
me.
today's episode is the Pro Day Party. And to be able to break down the Pro Day party at Ohio State that was this past week with the Commanders going to visit is good friend of this show, draft savant, Mr. Ian Cummings. Thank you for joining us on this Friday evening, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. It's been a busy week, 2 week stretch, keeping up with the pro day results, but obviously the best time of year, getting more information about these guys.
Absolutely, brother. And of course, my internet decides to completely go out for some random reason, but that's neither here nor there. Ian, the first order of business that I do have for you, the Ohio State Pro Day. Obviously, everyone was in attendance for Washington. Lance
Mhm.
Newmark, obviously Adam Peters was there, Dan Quinn. What is your kind of interpretation of that? Is that smoke and mirrors, or is there a fire there?
I mean, when you send, I'll say two things. One, when you send all of that personnel to a pro day, I'm willing to bet, like, when you send people somewhere, you're not able to send them somewhere else, right?
Right.
Anytime that you're able to be there in person, gathering information, you're using resources and time, that's valuable. So I think anytime you have that big of a contingent, I think it shows some interest. Now, I don't think interest is a surprise in this case, right? I mean, looking at that Ohio State defense alone, the prospects that they have in the top 10 range that the Commanders could be interested in. It's not a surprise. I think it's definitely an indicator, but also you're doing homework on guys that you could pick. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the selection. You have to be informed about all of your options at seventh overall. So I think it's not a surprise. I do think it's an indicator of interest, but also there's a long way to go, and a lot of it depends on what happens with the six teams above them.
I totally agree with you. And if you were to choose, we don't know how the draft order is going to go down, but of those Ohio State guys, who do you think would maximize Washington's potential the most?
Well, I think, yeah, I mentioned the defenders earlier, but also you gotta look at Carnell Tate as well at wide receiver. Looking at the receiving core that the Commanders have, you got Terry McLaurin, who himself was getting older, wasn't as available this past season, so you worry about the long-term prognosis there. The defenders are compelling, I will say that, and I think in particular, one thing that I can say about the Commanders and what they did this offseason, getting Leo Chenal to pair with Frankie Louvu, they got Odafe Owa on the edge, right? They also got Clavon Chazon, Charles Omenihu. So they've made the rotation deeper, and I think they've positioned themselves in a way where they're not forced into a corner. They don't need to take an edge with that first pick. So again, you're looking at Carnell Tate, Arvell Reese if he's there, Caleb Downs if the medicals check out, right? But I think earlier in the cycle, a lot of people were saying edge or bust, right? Edge or receiver. Now I think it opens up a little bit more. And so I would say that the biggest impact guy right away, I'm looking at the offense, man. As much as I love the defensive players on that Ohio
Hmm.
State, right? And Sonny Styles would be a great pick too. I think in particular, if you're thinking long term, right? He's an X factor at the second level. He could do it all. But that receiving core is rough, man. I think there's not a lot of guarantees there. And with Jaden Daniels entering a really crucial third year where he needs to bounce back, he wanted to be comfortable in the new offense. I think getting a player like Carnell Tate, someone who thrives with the vertical shots that Jaden Daniels thrived with Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors in college, right? But can also separate in the short and intermediate levels, right? That has some underutilized rack potential too, and has the catch point ability, the route running. So, the weaponry is so sparse. I would lean toward investing in that. That said, if you go Arvell Reese, if you go Sonny Styles, if you go Caleb Downs, I'm not going to argue because all of them are top five prospects on my board. All of them are potential game changers on the defensive side. So I don't think there's really, to me, it's a win-win. But I think for Washington in particular, they've invested enough on the defensive side in free agency that I think now you can get a blue chip wide receiver if you want to.
My man, I love to hear that. Street, do you have a question for Ian?
Yes, sir. So I saw that you had my Georgia dog Oscar Delp as your tight end too. Are you willing to expound upon exactly why? Because even in your tweet, you said this is a very strong tight end class. Why do you have,
Yeah.
even with the limited opportunities, and I can admit Bobo vastly underutilized them. Why do you feel that way about Oscar Delp?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny about the underutilization. I had another podcast for PFSN the other day, and I was kind of researching the usage statistics for Oscar Delp. And this past year in particular, I thought was very telling, even being the top guy. And he was dealing with a hairline fracture, for most of the season too in his
Mm.
foot, which is pretty crazy because he's still showing that propulsion and that explosion and that speed at 6'5", which is a big factor of why he is my tight end too. But again, he only had an on-field target percentage of 9.9%. Right. So when he's on the field, he's being targeted less than 10% of those instances, right? And I think a big reason for that is his utility is so strong in other areas. They gave him 87 pass protection reps, and he only allowed a 1.1 pressure percentage in those reps. So you're looking at a guy who is very sound in all aspects of the game. And here's the thing with tight ends. And I used to be the other way. I used to heavily value receiving output to a fault, right? But this cycle, I've come around to how important blocking is. And I'm not saying Delp is only a blocker. I believe in his receiving upside, but when you want to play, when you want to start in the NFL, right? And these teams are using a lot of 1-2 personnel. You want to be able to be out there on those heavy sets, but also 11 personnel. And you got to be able to block, right? You have to be able to line up in line, dislodge defensive end, seal your gap or, insert into the B gap if you need to, go inside, moving out in space. Those things are great. Having the versatility is great. But Oscar Delp to me has this ready-made blocking profile. And then you look at the receiving upside. He ran a 4.48 with a hairline fracture in his foot that wasn't fully healed. I think that explosion shows up on the film too, where he's a really good seam splicer. I think, in his limited opportunities, he's shown pretty good on awareness of zone coverage and how to sit in those soft spots and make himself available. The body control is there. I think the ability to make tough catches in stride is there for sure. And then the run after catch ability with the forward churning, leg churn, the explosion in the speed in space. All of those things bode well for his future. So I think the sample size, the usage profile, it's a little bit lower than we're accustomed to seeing for such a talented player. But I'm willing to bet on him for two reasons. One, the blocking profile is elite as a pass blocker and a run blocker. So you know that you can get him out there on those running downs. But then also the receiving upside is pretty freaking exciting with the speed, with the seam splicing ability, the zone awareness. And I think he has enough size to box guys out and play body control too. So big fan of the player. Big fan of what he can become. I'm fully aware that there is some projection involved with the receiving production, and it's a really strong side in class. So he's got competition. But to me, past Kenyon Sadiq, if you had to ask me who's got the elite tools to be that game changer, I would put Oscar Delp in that conversation too.
Yeah,
Music to my ears.
his hands are incredible. His first initial punch, for as little as he is, it's
Mhm.
absolutely staggering what he's able to do to some guys. But now we are joined by our other special co-host, the man himself, Mr. Corey Sanchez. What's up, Mr. 40K? Do you have a question for Ian? I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Having issues back here. Good
There
to
you
be
go.
back on here with you guys. Um, and I'm just gonna get straight to the point.
Mhm.
What in the world do we need? It's lion season. I know, but what at pick seven? What's this gonna be? I'm paying you all the money. You are Ian Peters right now, and who you got? Who you got? I hear everything in the Twitterverse, but tell me who you're taking.
Man, it's tough, right? Because one, my predisposition is to sit on the fence. Kyle knows it way too well by now. I sit on the fence all the time. So giving a definitive answer, man. But I would say if it was my pick, again, it depends on who's on the board, right? Because the board can fall a number of different ways. This is a very complex draft in the sense that there are a lot of non-premium positions in the top 10. Caleb Downs, safety. Sonny Styles, off-ball linebacker. They tend to go later. Arvell Reese, depending on how you view him, the positional designation is kind of tricky there. Jeremiah Love, running back. there are a lot of guys who, usually you see offensive tackle and edge, and there are some edge guys for sure. David Bailey, I think, could be a pretty good pick if he's there. I think the Commanders, though, and I was telling them earlier too, I think getting Odafe Owa and Clavon Chazon, who had a breakout year with the Patriots, you're worried about regression with any of those one-year guys who broke out in the right situation, right? Charles Omenihu has struggled with availability in recent years and health, and he's getting older. So again, I don't know if any of those guys preclude you from taking an edge at 7 if you wanted to. If you want to get a guy like David Bailey, who's just a menace off the edge with his short area twitch and explosion and the power capacity too. Ruben Bain, who's just an absolute operator, right? Even though the arm length is a concern, I think he counteracts it with leverage and power and mass and explosion and then proper technique as well. So, I don't think any of the guys at the Commanders side, as much as I love to say they invested in free agency, I think they put themselves in position where they have flexibility. But I also think if a guy like David Bailey is there, or if Arvell Reese is there, and you're confident in the projection, I could see them taking it. What I would do is probably take Carnell Tate to get Jaden Daniels that weapon because that receiving core looks really bare right now. Terry McLaurin is getting older, as good as he was and still is in his prime. If he can get back to 100%, I still think you need. And my stance has always been, I think a receiving core, it's like a basketball team. You got to have guys that feed off each other, different guys that can produce independently. You never want to be too focused on one guy because the defense can skew attention to him. And if they can win one-on-one against everyone else, then you're kind of stuck. You get funneled into it. So I think having different receivers, different, kind of 1A, 1B guys who can play off one another, I really think that's the way. And that was how he had it at LSU with Neighbors and Thomas. So I think getting a guy like Carnell Tate, who really fits Jaden Daniels' skill set and allows him to play comfortable, that's what I would do. What I think they would do, it's tough, right? Because I think this Dan Quinn, defensive coach, I have to believe if he has a chance to get a guy like Ruben Bain who fits his size profile, right? He tends to like heavier defensive linemen. Now, the arm length is a little bit of a concern, right? But I also think the film counteracts it and nullifies it a little bit with just how often he's able to disrupt. So I would not be surprised if Dan Quinn went the defensive route. I think they should go the offensive route personally. If Carnell Tate is there, if Carnell Tate's not there, it makes it a little more complicated. And I think you can look at defense a little bit more comfortably. But yeah, it's a nuanced discussion. I would go Carnell Tate. I can see Dan Quinn going defense. I think there's options for sure.
Absolutely. Now, one of the players that Washington has scheduled a 30 visit with is a guy that on our Commanders draft show with Smoke, Red Zone, and DT, Smoke brought up Keonte Scott, the DB slash linebacker from Miami. And this, as soon as I saw the tape, and I was like, that's Adam Peters, that's Durante Jones to a T, from a slot slash nickel back position, blitzing the quarterback, run support, also in the pass game. Where do you think Keonte Scott fits in with this Washington defense, given that we don't know really what Durante Jones is going to do, but just based on that attacking style mindset, Keonte Scott fits the bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Keonte Scott. I think raw grade, he's a top 32 guy for me. I think the age will probably push him into day 2 range. I would say he's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. He went the JUCO route originally. We bounced around a little bit, but really showed out this past year. But I think for a team like Washington, right, you're trying to reclaim this contention window. I think he could be a really good pick in the day 2 range as a guy who, again, can fill that nickel role. I know they signed Amik Robertson, who was pretty good as a spot starter for the Lions. He took his lumps a little bit, but he's kind of your journeyman guy who's going to insulate the depth of your room. But if you have an opportunity to get a guy like Keonte Scott, I say you have a pretty good chance of taking it. The only thing that would sway me away from it, if you're going for a nickel guy, another player is Trayton Stukes from Arizona. Ironically, also an older guy, but another one that I'm a big fan of. But to Keonte Scott, love the attacking play style. I think it gets ahead of him at times. I think it gets the best of him at times. From a tackling perspective, he can be pretty uncontrolled, and he doesn't have great length. So when you don't have great length and you're kind of uncontrolled with your breakdown angles, with your tackling form, some volatility can occur. And I think he has a well over a 10% missed tackle rate from this previous year. So that's the only thing I don't like about his run support, though. I love the quick responsiveness. I love the instant trigger. I love the explosiveness coming downhill and the willingness to engage blocks and play physical and at the very least reroute runners so that you can funnel them to other defenders too. So the run support, the quick triggers there. He's got the blitzing utility as well. But then in coverage, coverage too. I think he's a really good player, particularly, dropping into zone, right? Which we know Dan Quinn. We know he's implemented a little bit more man later in his career, but he originated with the Seattle cover three. Zone is a big part of it. And I think Keonte Scott is a guy who fits that very well, being able to drop into intermediate levels, and he's got the really propulsive explosiveness, but he's got really easy hip sync too, where he can, acquire those acute shin angles and just, explode downhill toward the ball. I think his instincts, his route responsiveness, and the vision, the reaction speed, all of those things are massive strengths with him, and he's pretty fluid too. I think he's malleable in his brace, well twitched up, where he can recalibrate and explode downhill in an instant. So, I think all of those things bode well for him. And there was I can't remember what team it was against off the top of my head, but the pick six. It was a design screen, and he read it instantly. Just knew exactly what was happening. There's that pre-snap identification with him too, which, if you're a nickel, if you know what's coming, if you do your study, if you understand formations and can key in on those things, it helps you play with that much more confidence. And you see that with Keonte Scott on tape. So gonna be an older guy, gonna be an older rookie, and needs to clean up the tackling. I'll say that. I think that's a big thing where he can be in proper position a lot. He
Right.
makes the right read, but if you can't convert, that can lead to a big play anyway. So he's got to clean that up. But I'm a big fan of the player, big fan of the fit. Depends on how they want to play the board, but I think he'd fit really well with the secondary, what they have, and could be a missing piece for them. So love the player, love the fit, love the upside.
Hey, it's funny, you don't know what game that was, but off the top of my head, it's probably my Hokies that it was against, just based on how this season went for us. Haven't been so great. But I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Ian. You have to pick one player that's projected day 3 right now that will have a good career in the NFL. Just one.
Just one. I'm gonna go with Aiden Fisher, linebacker,
Really?
Indiana. That's the first one that came to mind. There's a few others, Landon Robinson from Navy, Matthew Hibner from SMU. I'm a big fan of those guys, but Aiden Fisher to me gets lost in this linebacker class a little bit because it's a very deep linebacker class with a
Yeah.
lot of talent too. A lot of guys who are long, who are explosive, who are fast. Aiden Fisher isn't going to draw any of that attention. He's 6'1", 230. He's not the best athlete. I do think he's a
Right.
pretty good mover. I don't think he tested, but and I think Indiana's pro day is coming up April 1st. So we'll see if he does test. If he does, I don't expect him to blow the roof off. Maybe like a low to mid 4.7, decent explosiveness numbers, decent three cone and short shuttle, but on film, I think his coverage mobility, I think it exceeds that. But what I really think you're getting with Aiden Fisher is a hyper elite processor. This is a guy who understands schematics and can read plays pre-snap and post-snap at the highest level in the class, and the confidence that he plays with as a result. He's always just flowing to gaps and meeting pullers head on, or navigating through creases and the B gap and A gap and trying to find a way to occlude running schemes. And then he's able to play physical and beyond his size at the contact point too. He's so good at that. And then in zone coverage, even though he doesn't quite have that high-end explosion and speed, I think he's fluid enough to kind of swivel and manage space. And then he's got really good blind spot IQ too. So he's kind of an embodiment of this Indiana mindset that they had this past year, and we're not the biggest, they called themselves the misfit squad, right? And I think
Yeah.
Aiden Fisher is one of those guys who doesn't bring those elite physical components, but I think, especially in today's NFL where it's the too high evolution, you got to be able to play physical and assignment sound, angle sound in the box. You got to be able to respond quickly. I think Aiden Fisher's a guy who's going to really live up to that, right? I think the non-elite athletic ceiling caps his potential a little bit, but I see him being a really, really good starter just because of the intangibles and the passable athletic foundation.
So what you're saying is basically he would have fit in really well in the early 2000s.
Oh
Is
yeah,
what I'm
for
hearing
sure.
from you.
For sure. No,
Last,
I got to give him a little more credit athletically. I think he
I got
passes
you.
the requisite threshold. He's
I
not
got you.
the neck roll guy.
I got you. Oh, dude, I wore a neck roll. Don't shoot us down. Last question. Last question I have for you, Ian, before I let you get out of here. There is a discussion right now. It's about a month before the draft of the staying put at 7 and getting that blue chip playmaker, but we can all agree that blue chip there's not 32 of them typically in the first round, right? So where do you gauge for Washington based on Washington only has 6 picks. They don't have a second rounder. They only have what's obviously 7, and then they have 71. Where do you lie in saying, is it more productive to get that blue chip talent because there's more of a chance that we're going to get it there at 7, or trading back for more assets, but getting a good player maybe later on in the first? Where do you put the maximization of production? Where would you lie that?
I think it's tricky, right? Because it depends on who's on the board. If Carnell Tate falls to 7, I wouldn't expect him to personally, but this receiving class, there's 3 guys at the top. We don't know how
Yeah.
they're going to view them. If he's there, I would take him and not feel bad about it. Any of the edge guys too, like any of those guys, I would not be averse to just staying put and taking one of them or Caleb
Mm,
Downs. But here's the thing with Caleb Downs. I know the medicals were potentially flagged at the NFL Combine. I know safeties in general, positional value can be an issue. So if Washington is eyeing that big nickel, right, like a Dylan Thineman would be a great pick too. I have a really high grade on him and Downs. If you wanted to trade back, here's the thing. Okay, I'm the situation, the scenario that would happen for them to have to trade down, in my opinion. And I think they could trade down either way. I think you gain value from it. You gain picks, which they do have needs that they still need to fill. But I think the situation where they do trade down, Carnell Tate is gone, David Bailey's gone, Arvell Reese is gone, and Ruben Bain is gone. I think if all of those
okay.
guys are gone off the board, I think you can entertain trading down a little bit. You could get Sonny Styles if you wanted to, but again, I know they signed an off-ball linebacker, Leo Chenal, a little bit different player. But if they don't want to go linebacker early and want to dip in later, you could trade down to the teens and maybe hope that Caleb Downs or Dylan Thineman falls to you because safeties tend to fall a little bit. If you
Right.
get in the teens and get one of them, that could be a really good outcome for you. But I think that would it would have to be all of those guys are off the board. I think at number 7 overall, there's a relatively high chance that you're going to have one of those top 5 guys fall to you, especially with Fernando Mendoza going number 1. That knocks one spot out, right? So I think there's a chance. I think that's the outcome that would need to occur for them to trade down. But if you do trade down, I think there's still a chance that some of those guys in the non-premium positions might be able to be available for you, and you get day 2 capital.
My man. Ian, before you get out of here, I'd like to plug your social media handles, sir.
Yep. For those of you watching, you can follow me at IC_draft on X, formerly Twitter. Any questions you have about the draft, feel free to hit me up. I'm working on the PFSN mock draft simulator, the NFL Draft HQ. Less than a month out. We're almost there on the home stretch.
My man. And make sure you guys get those questions in with Ian quickly because as soon as the draft is over, he's working on the 2027. So just to
I'm
give you a
actually
heads up.
working on it before the draft.
There you
Yeah,
go. So he's
we're
already got a
switching.
head start on 27, which is insane. Ian, have a good night, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you guys.
Thanks
All
for
right,
coming.
everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ian Cummings. Always appreciate Ian's time, being able to break down. Very supportive of Carnell Tate. That was surprising to me, but I would say it's probably not surprising to everybody because everyone has voiced their concerns about wide receiver. But Street, Corey, it's good to see you boys. It's been a long time. Corey, congratulations. Obviously, again, another father again, my man. How are you doing?
Making it happen, bro. Making it happen. I haven't been up here for a while, so and when I say up here, not on your show, but just doing everything. And my audio is so messed up right now. So that just tells you that I've been locked in with daddyhood, and
I got
I've
you.
got my little girl now, and she's almost 2 months now. So we're having fun, and
Time
um,
flies.
it's different from raising them boys and raising them girls. It's just
Yeah.
like they twist you a little different, even when they don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. So, but it's fun, and then kind of keeping up with all you guys. It's been a quick thing, and I'm about to go back to work here in a couple of weeks. So,
My man, I enjoy the time as much as you can. I know as much
yeah.
as that time for me was not really a vacation. My coworkers treated it as it was, like it was, and it was not. I was not sleeping during that time, and I'm sure you're not sleeping all that much. And that being said, don't worry about the microphone. That's not why we bring you on here, my man. We bring you on here for the camera. You know what I'm saying, my man?
That's Rigo. That's superstar down here. That's not me, man. That's superstar down there. That one of the kings. I gotta bow down to one of the kings over here. So
Now, Rico, my
I'm
son.
chilling, man.
My son asked, like, hopped on the podcast like last episode or the episode ago. And so I was writing out questions for Ian, right? And so he decided that he wanted to write a question. If you would humor and me and answer a question my son had, it was the only thing that could come to mind for him. But I'll go to you, Corey,
Sure.
next. But his question was, why are you doing your podcast?
Man, I just love my Commanders, man. I mean, I started in 2017 without even necessarily having the vision of making money from it. I was just like, I love my Commanders. Why not talk about it? I have opinions. And that's why I encourage everybody to make channels too. Like, whenever your
Hmm.
son is ready, go ahead. Like, go crazy. Make one too, man. You never know. Like, I mean, I feel like we all have such great opinions. I feel like I love the fact that we all disagree with certain things, and I just love all of the different angles. I mean, I like the fact that I'm bringing like an Atlanta angle, but we have some people from Cali, some people
Right.
from the UK. Of course, I appreciate those of y'all from the DMV that are the heart and soul of the fan base. So I really just did it for the love of the game, honestly.
My man, I'm right there with you. Like when we started out, I tell my son this. Like there was no making money from this thing. The only dream that we really had was to be able to interview players in person. Just thought that'd be really cool. We were able to do that, thankfully, from the draft day party a couple years ago. We got to interview John Allen, Fuller, Logan Thomas was there as well. Got to meet up with Fred Smoot and others. It was a really good time. But honestly, it's just fun to do. We all just love to do this, man. And as crazy as it is, and how much time that we invest in it, it really is a lot about the community, like Street Scorer said. The kind of people that you meet up with. Like we had people driving up from Georgia, just to come and meet up with us at training camp to experience training camp together. Shout out to Tim Towner. So that really, why did I start it? Just because I wanted to do something. I was bored. I wasn't a father yet. I had a lot of time, and so a lot of my time went towards talking Commander. So I said, "Why not, man? It's what we love to do." What about you, Corey?
Um, well, ironically enough, this is year 10 for me doing it. So it's been kind of like with you all. I just wanted to go on there and talk about it. And when I started, um, I think it was just really Louis T at the time that was doing it. So it's kind of in the infancy of doing it. So I just I had buddies who told me it's like you talk a lot about them and you live and die with them all the time and they suck. So you might as well just go on and just give your frustration out. And you know what I did. And it's been I think from my standpoint, it's been more of game day, right? Like I'm one of the game day guys, and I mean that's where I thrive at. That's me all the time. And like
I've
you,
seen,
Kyle,
I've seen your celebration videos. You
yes,
get jacked up, dude.
yes. You should see me when I'm mad. Like I mean, I've had to kind of curtail that a little bit more as I become a father, so I don't have my kids repeating what I'm saying. I think my son he gets the stomping from me. He'll get mad and be like, "You don't! I told you don't do it." I'm like, "Zane, buddy, where did you learn this from?" And like we think it's from Pop watching the Commanders
Hmm.
upstairs, especially after this past season. But yeah, I mean that's what I did. I did it for the love, and just kind of networking with you all, networking with some of our folks in the media. Kyle, I know one of our favorite guys, Scott Jackson.
Yep.
That's how I know him. Him and his massive cranium. I call him forehead. I'll tell y'all a little joke here. And so I went to the Christmas game, and I called Smoot and Jackson after the game and everything like that. And I said, "Hey, Johnny played great, and you know, uh, Krosky Merritt played great. Old Bill played great." But I said, "You know what? I'm going to give you fellas gifts." So I said, "Scott, I found a size 10 ball cap. I'm going to send you down there to Virginia Beach." And then Fred, I said, "An all expenses paid 7-day carnival cruise for you." So if you know, you know. And I said that on air, and it's just like, but they knew it was out of a place of love. But that's just kind of like how cool and like the access that some of us have had with this. And at the end of the day, we're all just regular dudes. Like that's the one thing.
Right.
We don't think of ourselves bigger than anybody now. We got people out there, not in the podcasting world, but in other places. And if you look hard enough, you don't have to look hard enough, you'll see where they're at, who think they are better than iced tea and carrot cake. But you know what? We just keep on doing the same things. And I just love how genuine our community is and the folks that are in there. Like, I mean, yeah. But I got started just to talk ball and talk about my team and learn a little bit more about my team because I feel like we're all learning from each other how to be better,
There you
and how
go.
to. develop our opinions and everything. And I mean, I think that's great.
And that's exactly why I got on Twitter.
Mhm.
It's what this show is based on. It's just learning stuff,
Yep.
learning something new every day and learning from different people, regardless if you agree with them or not. It's just another opinion, and it's good to hear those, right? And Street Scores, you said my son would probably be ready to start his own show. I don't know how many people would view in for him, see how many times he could fart into the microphone, because he just, right now, that's his fatuation is
That's
walking.
that's a boy thing, man.
Yep.
I know, I
It'll
know.
pass. It'll
I know,
pass.
but it's hysterical. I think that's the only thing he would come up with. But speaking of,
Has he hit the bad joke stage yet? Like the
oh,
knock knock jokes and all
oh
that.
yeah,
He
dude,
already.
we just
Oh
gave me
yeah.
knock jokes earlier with banana. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Don't let me
already on
around
it.
him. I'll cheer him on. I'll egg him on.
My man. Now let's get into some fan questions that were submitted. Street, I'll go with you first. This one from Tony Franchise. What remaining free agents available would you be interested in signing?
Interestingly enough, I mean, we're already paying him 12 million to not be here, and we still have a glaring hole there. Even if you do bring in Brandon Ayuk, now of course there's a very strict limit to how much money I'd be willing to pay him in a new contract. But I'm intrigued with Debo. I mean, the chemistry with Jaden, you saw it grow. Debo made his fair share of mistakes. But he was one of the more available receivers we had last year. And he was a weapon, and I'd be intrigued to see how like David Blau could get the most out of him. But there is some chemistry with Jaden already there, which Jaden doesn't have that chemistry with Brandon Ayuk anymore. Even if when we get Brandon Ayuk, first of all, when will we get him? Will he even have time to practice with Jaden, like training camp and all of that? Or the 49ers going to be petty? And we've seen, I remember when Jamar Chase held out for his contract, that he said that one off season of him holding out, he lost all of his chemistry with Joe Burrow, and he felt like that's why they got off to an ugly start, and that's why they ended up not making the playoffs, even though they started to heat up towards the end of the season. But they were just already mathematically eliminated. It was too late, and that's a guy that not only played with him in the NFL for a few years prior to that, but played with him in college at LSU as well. So I'm pretty sure if Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can lose chemistry over one off season, Brandon Ayuk can as well. So even though I'm more optimistic about the Brandon Ayuk experiment, probably more than most Commanders fans, I do think we need receiver. And I like bringing in Debo for potentially cheaper, especially than what he expected hitting this market.
Yeah, Debo's a great one. He was just working out with somebody this week. I forget
Oh,
exactly.
Luvu.
It was
I think
Luvu.
it was Luvu. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
he was
Great
working out with
point.
Luvu, so obviously he still has his connections here in DC. And I would say it's probably going to be similar to Chris Paul, where he went out and tested some things, came back right. I think there'd be the same thing with Debo. It is interesting what San Fran is going to do. That's a great one, great selection by you. At this point, like I am not invested in free agency, Tony. I have all my eyes are on the draft and all the remaining draft picks. I can't tell you how many guys I've looked up and watched so far this draft cycle. That's where my
Mm-hmm.
mind is going. But of the remaining guys, I'd say Bobby Wagner. Just given with what his pedigree is with this football team, I know everyone will say he's old and he's washed. I get it, but he does have things he can help with, especially in attacking style defense where you want to allow him the flexibility to get that new record, but not to the point where he's getting exposed in the middle of the field. You can kind of seesaw that action with Bobby Wagner. So I'd say Bobby. What about you, Corey? Do you have anybody in mind?
Yeah, I mean, y'all went from fat to old, and I mean, golly, Moses, those I was thinking, Bobby. Look, I have no people call Debo fat, but I would love to be as fat as Debo, to be honest with you.
Which is
Wallet
hilarious
and
because Brandon
yeah,
Graham for the Eagles was calling him fat to our boy. And then all of a sudden this offseason, Eagles fans like, should we sign Debo?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened. That's what happened when you dating your cousin and everything up there in Philadelphia. So, um,
It's true.
yeah, I mean, Bobby's intriguing, right? But and Bobby is a lot like it's like fine wine, right? It's how you drink it. It's not if you got it on the shelf, right? You got to know the occasion when to use him. And my little man downstairs is agreeing with me on that too. It's just like that's why I would think you can't put price on leadership. And then with that being said, it's the same thing. I know we brought in one of our guys from Wakanda at the tight end spot. Do you want to bring Ertz back for a little bit? Man, we collect them like Infinity Stones. We're gonna have the all African team this year, and we're gonna sell. Like I'm telling you, we're gonna have it. So I mean, maybe Ertz, and where he's still a free agent. Yeah, Kyle, it's okay to laugh.
You're killing me, dude. You're
He's talking
killing
about
me.
a Minahu, Odafe Owe,
Yes.
Okonkwo, yeah.
Everybody's got 6 syllables to the name, bro. This is gonna be great. So we're gonna be like,
So messed up.
and we got the spear too. Come on now.
Well, we got the new uniforms coming on the 15th of April. I would imagine we're probably going to be seeing what we used to see, just brought back. And if people say you can't get excited over something you've seen before, I want to point them to the release of NCAA, the football game, after so many years of not being published. A lot of people flocked back to it. I would imagine it's similar sort of thing with the jerseys. Now, Corey, this next question, this is from Command D's Nuts, our boy Michael. God bless you, Michael. His question is, Corey, do you think having a top 30 visit, or it's just a 30 visit, Michael, with Caden McDonald, the DT from Ohio State, is a sign they have no plan on keeping Payne at what he'll want to get paid after this season?
I mean, I think not just that, but I think just how they're kind of angling. If you really wanted him for the future, right? With him having it's no guaranteed money left on that contract either. I think that signaled that more than anything. This is just a kind of, hey, we're gonna let you play this out, and what happens with you is what happens. And if you have some all-out great season like you did in 22, then we'll bring you back. But I think before that even top 30 visit that 30 visit that you're talking about, I think the writing's on the wall. I think this is Deron Payne's last year in Washington, just because of, and I hate to use the word behaviors because it sounds like it's negative, but and it's not. It's just the behaviors and kind of where everything is trending. I would lean that Deron Payne is probably playing his last days in the Burgundy and Gold. And folks have talked about that before, so I don't know, but that's just how I look at it.
I do think that them with the 30 visit with McDonald, I think it has a lot to do with just the defensive room altogether, and doesn't have to just be about Deron Payne, Michael, because if you look at the running back position, the wide receiver and edge position, we did this little exercise in the Discord, or on here I did, of how many guys are on the roster at each position on how many years they've been here, right? Like, when's the last draft pick they put into it? Johnny Newton is really the only draft pick they have attributed to the defensive tackle spot. And past this year, they really only would have Johnny Newton and I think Tim Settle after the season. So you'd have to look at it and say, is there a now factor? Of course there is. But there's also a future factor involved. And I do think that Adam Peters likes to have all of his ducks in a row. So if certain things kind of play out a certain way, that they're going to be prepared for it. So if Caden McDonald is the only guy on the board that's highly sought after in their eyes, they're going to be ready to be able to make that selection, right? I do think I don't think it's exclusively to Deron Payne. I do think it's more about long-term and what you really want to build on and being prepared for it if that situation arose. Because another guy in Dominique Orange, Big Citrus, is another nose defensive tackle to keep your eye on. That dude's a monster. What about you, Street?
Yeah, even to that point, to further your point, because I agree with y'all, that we don't have like a true nose tackle body. Like I've seen Tim Settle do some pretty good things last year in some double team occasions, but you don't want him doing that full time. Same thing with Javon Kinlaw. You get the flashes of dominant double team, get in the backfield, and then sometimes he gets washed by just a single blocker. Deron Payne, love him as well, but I don't want him consistently, being the center of gravity and the force multiplier in the middle of the defensive line. And so that could potentially be, if we're thinking about trading back, and you're thinking about trading back further than probably most fans want to, that could end up being your first round pick if you trade back into like the 20s. I know most people are thinking, if we trade back, it won't be further than 12 or 15. But if you end up somewhere 18 to 25, he may actually be a really quality pick. Because if you trade back that far, you're getting some significant picks back. You're picking probably fairly early in the second round, probably getting another third as well.
Yeah, and if they were, like, let's just say hypothetically, they were to trade back in the 20s and they went DT, that would be like the Josh Connerly pick. Again, where we're saying, whoa, we weren't really expecting this, but when you look at the roster and what they have long term at that position, it actually does make sense. When you look at teams like Philly, look at teams like Seattle, where they built with defensive tackles. That's where they spent a lot of their money at, and it would make a lot of sense. Now, the next question that we have, sorry I didn't tag you guys anything on Twitter. Twitter is not allowing me to retweet this, quote, tweet it or post it. So this is kind of on its own. I had to do it in a separate video, but this will be uploading to YouTube later, of course. But this question from the Colonel, and I'm not sure if you are aware of this Street Scores, but the Colonel is a huge fan of yours. And his question that we're going to answer is, how ironic we take an LA Rams defensive back after they've gotten Cam Curl and Emmanuel Forbes from us the past couple seasons. Though the Rams likely got the better end of this deal, is he just a depth piece?
Yes, I believe so. But I think he's a slight upgrade over what we were getting from Noah Benogany and Jonathan Jones. I like him slightly more than that. I don't expect him to come in and start. I'm not expecting him, like, depth chart wise, I believe Amik Robertson's probably even over him. But it kind of continues the theme of adding insurance. Like, we win a lot of edge rushers in free agency so that if an edge rusher you really like is not there at 7, you don't have to go edge. I feel like this also makes it to where if you're not comfortable taking like a Mansur Delane or Jamal McCoy at 7, and maybe you trade back and then both of them are gone by the time you trade back, you're not stressing too much because at least Akella Witherspoon, somewhat of a down year last year, but it was more so because he was banged up. He's lost a little bit of a step, but I mean, he still had that amazing interception against the Cardinals, I believe it was. So he's a guy that can still play. And I mean, we needed depth and we also needed length. Like, I would say he's our tallest playable corner. Because we have a bunch of 6'2", 6'3" guys on the back end. Carlin Vigors, far down in the depth chart, all of those type of guys. Darius Rush.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a playable. I wouldn't consider those guys playable. They feel like more like camp bodies, preseason bodies. He's somebody that if he's in the rotation on Sunday, you're not too worried about it. You don't want him starting, but he's solid in the rotation.
Yeah, and this is just them adding more because they've added a bunch of noodles into the spaghetti at every position. Running back, you could look at tight end, wide receiver, they did this. They did this, of course, with safety as well. But corner, there wasn't really that many on the roster. And so it does make sense they went and got a Hello Witherspoon because it is somebody that Adam Peters is comfortable with. They know what they want, and they know the player. Because the one thing that Adam Peters said in his post-season presser was, we got an issue with bringing people in that we didn't know and how they would mesh, right? And obviously, I think we all know what he's referring to. And so getting somebody like Witherspoon says a lot about what he knows him very well, knows how he'd mesh here. So I'd say that, yes, he's a depth piece. Somebody that you can rely on, flash in a pan, somebody gets banged up, could come right in. We saw Trey Amos leave this year. I think Akilo is like somebody you bring in just to add some meat onto the plate, but is not the overall course of the dinner. Right, you could still go down the route of corner if you need to in the draft, and there's plenty of them. Dalen Everett, Devin Marshall is another guy I like. Andre Fuller is fantastic. So there's a lot of corners in the draft as well, but it's just setting the ducks in a row so that everything is supported, and you can't really key in on any position to say this is verifiably 100% where they need to go. They're in a very good position. They're like water. If it doesn't matter what jug it's in, it could be a coffee mug, water cup, it could be a hose. Whatever it is, you're molding to that, and whatever's presented to them is what they're going to be able to take. That's how I interpret it. It's just specifically a depth piece to add some more confidence into that room.
Even to further that, it's like we're eating our veggies, especially with a lot of the free agency signings that we made, and you're bringing in floor. We brought in a lot of floor. We brought in some ceiling as well. That's what makes this free agency class really exciting, because we brought in a lot of ceiling, brought in a lot of youth, a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, but we also made sure we continued to bring in floor. And I wouldn't be surprised we sign a couple of more guys that add more floor to different respective position groups so that when you get to the draft, you're drafting more so for ceiling. Now, you're not going for like this extremely raw, you're banking on them to not contribute for you until like year 2 or something like that or beyond, but you can go after traits. You can go after
Yeah.
potential best player available because you ate your veggies in free agency, and now you get to enjoy your desserts in the draft.
And especially if this defense is going to be keen on being aggressive and bringing a lot of pressure, Witherspoon and others wouldn't be carrying a lot of weight in sense of covering ability. They just have to be able to react and be able to catch a football. Like Street Scores alluded to earlier, he did that pretty well last year, given at where he is at in his career. Flash in a pan, you could really delve on that. You know he's going to be picked on if he were to come in the game. Corey, do you have anything to add, brother?
No, I agree 110% with you all on that. And like I said, I've really enjoyed watching this free agency class. I mean, we got guys who look like they're proven commodities, and they're going to help out. They're going to know what their roles are. And just how they maneuvered business wise from business standpoint as well too. So I mean, I'm excited about it, but yeah, I agree 110% with what you all said about it.
My man, I know you did. Next question from the Colonel, Corey. If we are intent on wide receiver, I'm intrigued by the trade back scenario. I'd be sick if we passed on Carnell Tate. I could be consoled by moving back to around 15 and snagging Denzel Boston and a couple other later round picks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember one time we traded back for a wide receiver, and then he won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. I'm not a big trade back guy. I understand the logic behind it, but like with us, can y'all point to a time where that actually worked for us? And
For
I mean,
me, sorry to interrupt, like
Yeah, no.
trading back is one thing that maybe you value it if you don't go as crazy as you do as we did in free agency. I feel like we did enough in free agency to where we don't need any particular like a slew of players. I feel like
Right.
you just go after the blue chip guy, and we keep stacking blue chip guys over time, and that's where you have the better team. So I don't I'm with you. I prefer
Yeah.
not to trade back.
Yeah, I'm just like, get your like you said, Rico, your blue chip guy. If that's who is the best player on the board. Like, I mean, I've heard Buddy Love, if he falls to 7, I know it's Jeremiah Love, but I think of another professor. If he falls to 7, if he's the best player there, if they think that if that's him, good. If it's Tate, go ahead and do it. If it's Baby Arm Bain, at that point, go ahead and draft him or whatever it is. But like I'm not a fan of this trade back scenario because it just seems like historically it hasn't worked. But that's me being a scorned lover of this team. Is I always think that just because it hasn't worked the last 10 times, it may work. The 11th time might be the time it works. But I'm just not a fan of trading back.
So in the trade back scenario, I've been on point of saying that I want the blue chip guy, but I will also say this. I don't think the trade back matters as much as that second pick would matter in the scenario. If you're getting a high value second rounder early on in that round, that's value. Because just like with Johnny Newton, Trey Amos, those were guys that they had projected as first rounders that fell to those spots and that they swung on them. So if it's anything, I would imagine it's based on that second pick to say, there's somebody that we really, really like that we know is not going to be there at 71, and we want that two-phase, right? And the one thing about Denzel Boston, we did wide receivers last week, and I did a whole bunch of look on them. Obviously, the top 3 guys are the top 3 guys. But the one thing that kept jumping out to me when watching Denzel Boston is I just kept seeing Mike Evans, and in terms of his strength in his hands, his catching ability and big plays. Very strong-handed guy, and he just makes plays. He's not going to get all the glamour like the other wide receivers are, but I think that you could go a lot worse than Denzel Boston. So I actually am intrigued by that scenario, but I do think that second pick is what matters the most, because then it kind of makes sense with somebody like Caden McDonald. If he were to fall in that second round range and you're in the vicinity, you're feeling really good about that trade back scenario because you're really high on that guy. So I think I as much as I want to get that blue chip dude, I understand where people are going with it, where if you're going with the mindset that it's Carnell Tate or nothing and Carnell's gone, then you do have some options. And there are some other guys you could go with that, given what that Jaden Daniels did with somebody like Alamadi Zacchaeus, and not to disparage him whatsoever, with Jamison Crowder and company, you can't tell me and sit here and say the wide receiver they get in the first round is not going to be maximized. Is like you're telling me that the quarterback they had in college is not better than Jaden Daniels at this point in his career. I do think that he would elevate whoever you did bring onto this football team. So I'll put that caveat in there. I much rather would go with the blue chip guy, but the conversation is intriguing for me personally.
And I would add too that second round is a really good sweet spot for a safety, for corner, for receiver, maybe even linebacker. Not having that second round pick hurts, even though still would take the Laramie Tunsil trade any day of the week. But I agree. That second round is looking really nice right now, especially since a lot of people feel like the guy that you can get at 15 is going to be just as good as the guy that you probably get in the 50s.
And one thing to consider is that center spot is are they willing to go in and say, are we going to mortgage a later round pick to say it's a developmental guy, or can somebody like Logan Jones, Jake Slaughter come in and take the job away from Allegretti? That's a big question too. And if they were to get that second rounder, maybe that's where they could find that spot starter at center. That's hard to do in the NFL. I understand that completely, but just putting that caveat in there, the more farther you get down the list, it's harder to get somebody in here who's a starter capable week one if that is an incentive for the team. Sorry, Rico.
Nah, 100% agree.
Now, the next question that we have submitted, this one was in the Discord by our boy, Jeff Miles. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, brother. His question was, I'm sure he's a great talent, and I understand building for the future, Rico. He could be wide receiver 1. But when did it become okay to use a top 10 pick on a wide receiver 2 for your team? Usually a pick so high for a wide receiver, you know they'll be wide receiver 1 right away. This is why I'm out on Tate, Lemon, and Tyson at 7. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not very high on either of the receivers as well, at 7 specifically. Now, I'm always, forget what I think. If the Commanders feel like Carnell Tate is the answer receiver, please take him. But me personally, just based off of what I've watched off tape, I like Jordan Tyson's talent way more. But the injury history, and I don't even care about the collarbone and the ACL as much because we've seen him play well after that. It's that lingering hamstring issue that was messing with Terry last year and had him missing, several games 2 separate times. The nagging injury that Marshawn Lattimore has been dealing with the past couple of years. It's that hamstring injury that scares me away from Jordan Tyson. And I mean, even the fact that like his pro day, I guess was supposed to be earlier today, Friday, but now he's going to do it sometime in like a couple of weeks from now because he didn't even feel like he was healthy enough to do it today.
Yep.
And then I like Mekhi Lemon, but I don't feel like, I just don't feel like Carnell Tate or Mekhi Lemon are worthy of the 7th pick. I just feel like there's also going to be too many other great talents still available. I'm a big Love guy, a big, Sonny Styles guy. I would prefer personally Caleb Downs, but that's just, I mean, I may be biased because I've just been watching Caleb Downs since like 8th, 9th grade. He's from Georgia. Even though he did the Bulldogs very wrong, very reason to root against them. But I mean, I just love his talent. I mean, the IQ, the most prepared guy. So it just depends. Again, if the Commanders love Tate, and then I'm assuming if we take him at 7, they have a plan for him, and then I would be excited. But just as where we stand today, I'm not too excited about either of the receivers at 7.
So what I would say, Jeff, is to take it out of your head about the wide receiver 2 aspect. And think about it more that the Commanders were in on Alec Pierce, right? Brandon put this out on Twitter last week saying, what do you think they're looking for in trades for a wide receiver to complement Terry? And my point was, the blueprint has already been solidified. They've shown you many times over what they're looking for to complement Terry. Noah Brown has showcased this. Treylon Burks has showcased this. Diami Brown has showcased this. Over 6 foot, a possession wide receiver that can stretch the field. You can make comments about Noah Brown. 2024, he led the league in pass interference penalties on deep balls.
Yep.
Treylon Burks has the ability to. He was just injured last season. We didn't see it all that much. And we know that Diami Brown can stretch the field. We can go back to the Detroit game. We could go back to the game with Carson Wentz. Was that against Arizona? We had the 2 deep touchdowns. Was that Arizona a couple years ago? Corey, do you remember that? Titans, that's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
So Diami also has the ability to stretch the field. That's what they're looking for in a wide receiver too, to complement Terry. And also look at it from a roster perspective. What do they have long term besides Terry after this year? Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, that's about it. So when you're looking at the wide receiver class, look at it and say, who's over 6 foot? Carnell Tate is 6'3". Mekhi Lemon, I think, is sitting around 6 foot, but he projected more as a slot,
He's like
middle of the field,
5'11-ish.
roam around the middle of the field type of wide receiver. He's going to eat for you if that's what you're looking for. And then with Jordan Tyson, over 6 foot, has all the wide receiver one capabilities, but he has this Josh Doxson kind of aspect with him where it's like, how much are we actually going to get out of him once he's there? Of course, he's on the field, great things happen, but how confident are you that he's going to be able to play for you for all 17 games? It's a big question. So instead of looking at it, say, just the wide receiver 2 aspect, think about who can complement Terry given the criteria just listed. And at the top, by far, is Carnell Tate. Because the one thing that I will argue till the cows come home is, if Mekhi Lemon, if Jordan Tyson, if Denzel Boston had Jeremiah Smith on their team, how much of their usage and production would have been brought down? And obviously it's a crazy hypothetical, but when you're looking at it saying about a wide receiver 2, specifically talking about Carnell Tate, you have to look at it and say, well, they had Jeremiah Smith on their team, and he still popped off and was able to attack deep. That's what Washington wants to do. They want to expand that running box to allow the running game to be more productive, to allow more space. And somebody like Carnell Tate does that for you on day one. Corey, do you have anything?
No.
My man. Killed it. Now, this next question is for you then. This is from Arch. Oh, of course, it screwed me up. This next question is from Arch. His question is, Corey, and where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Any concerns about the 2 of the best running backs in the draft, both coming from Notre Dame?
It's a football powerhouse. Why would it be? Why would it be a big problem?
I think he's talking about the running back class in general, maybe.
I mean, yeah, it's thin. It's thin, right? So, it's kind of boom bust. But, I mean, I feel like running back is a position you can get the dime a dozen, right? And with that being said, sometimes it's what you make out. Look what we found. How many people had Bill on their radar in all these mock drafts and everything? And we found him in where he was able to put his stamp on this offense. So, I mean, I don't take solace in it. Maybe it's signaling something that might be a little bit of a concern, but I don't take too much solace in it. I think if he gets to the right team, Anthony Lynn can build running backs, can coach them up. I don't have a problem with anybody that would come here because the proof is in the pudding. He helped get Rodriguez on the right path. Look what he's done with Bill. I don't think it's a concern. Bring me the raw material. Y'all been talking about houses and everything. I'll give you one. What do they do? Yeah, they got down in Texas, the Potter's house. The Potter's here to put you back together again. That is what Anthony Lynn is. He's the Potter. He's the running back Potter, and I'm glad we did not lose him over the offseason for sure. So I mean, I'm not too concerned about it.
No, I think it's very similar to last draft where you had Travion Henderson and you had Quinshon Judkins. And they were very productive at Ohio State. They still produced widely in the NFL. I don't think them coming from the same college really matters. I do think the Texas A&M game is very glaring in how they were able to stop Jeremiah Love. It's obviously that they went in trying to stop Jeremiah Love, and they were able to do that for the most part. But then Jadarian Price just ripped them a new one, man. As soon as they felt good about taking care of Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price just ripped off 20-yard, 30-yard gains on him. And that's what you're kind of looking at with Jadarian Price is how you're going to be able to balance those two, right? Like you're starting running back and putting Jadarian Price in there, more of your downhill kind of runner, but he's able to find those holes and get through it quickly. Jeremiah Love, the one big concern about him is durability, because everyone has been screaming for Washington to draft him at 7. And I get it. You need the bell cow. You need a fantastic specimen like Jeremiah Love. But like we have seen, the running back position is the most hit, the most physical, that goes through the most injuries out of any position in the NFL. And using a top 10 pick on somebody, I know Todd Gurley was fantastic. I know he was, but his career was cut short because of the position that he played. You need to have a rotation. And if you're going to have that rotation, does it make sense to use that rotation piece on a top 10 pick? That's the big question I would ask. So those are my concerns about those two guys, but that wasn't the question you asked. But no, I don't care that they're both from Notre Dame. What about you, Street?
Yeah, I'm not worried about the fact that arguably the best two running backs, come from the same school. If anything, that's just bragging rights for them. I agree with Corey where like I trust our staff, especially led by Anthony Lynn, to where whoever they bring in at running back, I think you can expect this coaching staff to get the most out of them. So, yeah, I mean it's perceived thin, but you never know. Like after the draft, and it really takes about 2-3 years to really judge a draft class anyway. This could end up being a very underrated running back class. Who knows? I mean, Mike Washington, at the size he is, running the speed that he ran at the 40 time, and you just never know. There's random athletes. I mean, because Bill, the only reason I even knew about him before we took him was because of his 30 visits. It was like, who was this guy? Like, that's literally it, just tracking the visits. And then when you do research on him, it's like this guy has all of the talent in the world. He just ended up in a weird situation. There could be a couple of guys like that. College football is weird. NIL, transfer portal, you never know.
Yeah, and a lot of credit to DT from our Commanders draft show last season, because we always bring, we pick from the prospect list. We pick our own batch to bring, and sometimes they're the same, most times they're different, and guys that we pick up. And he looked at Bill in our Commanders draft so last season and talking about his ineligibility, talking about how well he did at the East-West Shrine Bowl, commanding that, getting the MVP. So a lot of credit to DT for being ahead of the game on that. He was absolutely right. That was a fantastic draft to be able to go get somebody late in. So credit to him. Now, the last question we have, boys, I'm not sure if you guys are wanting to answer this from Deluxe. Did anybody realize last time Washington picked 7th, they picked Bailey? Do we hear Bailey at 7 again, Rico, or do they repeat history in a different way and select a corner?
That is interesting, man. I mean, that's the last good Georgia Bulldog we've had on the Commanders, too, as me as a Bulldog fan. Honestly, because, what's his name? Linebacker from Carolina. I mean, by the time we got him, he was basically an on-the-field coach. Thomas Davis, thank you. By the time we
that was Ron Rivera's Bobby Wagner. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Basically. Bakari Rambo. And then you have you have Lawrence Cager on. We had I forgot the tight end, Eli, whatever. So I would love to end up with some type of, Bulldog connection. But there's no Bulldog other than Monroe Freeland. I feel like, honestly, just worth going 7th overall, but we don't need a tackle. So yeah, I would love to repeat the Bailey thing. Bailey's one of my favorite players in the draft. I feel like his ability to set the edge and stop the run, I feel like that's a little bit overblown. I understand the concerns, though. I'm not expecting him to come in day one and be on 3rd and 1, guy setting the edge necessarily. But I don't think he's necessarily a liability to where he can't play on 1st and 10. I don't think he's just a 3rd and long only guy. I feel like he's somewhere in the middle. I would love to get Bailey. I just don't think he's going to be there. I think between the Jets, Cardinals, potentially even the Titans, I don't think he's making it past there, honestly. But yeah, Bailey to Bailey. Last time we picked 7th, that's a great pool. Thank you.
Yeah, Arch always has those fantastic ones. And yeah, Bailey would be a perfect fit. His versatility in being a QB spy when he's not blitzing, he's shown the athleticism. Did really well on the one video I uploaded on Twitter of him on an option route of breaking in between the running back and quarterback, forcing the quarterback to keep it, and then going inside to tackle the quarterback, taking away 2 plays at once, and then still wrapping up the quarterback. That's insanely athletic.
Elite.
And I think David Bailey would fit a lot of what Durante Jones has done. And even though they've gone out and invested heavily in edge rusher, I think to Street Scores' point, if you were to get Bailey, you wouldn't be thrusting him in right away. You'd have to earn your reps, and you could have those specialized packages for him, gearing him up for success in those pass rush situations. So they've done enough at the end there. You could slide David Bailey in. I think David Bailey, Orville Reese, Sonny Styles, and I'll also say Cassius Howell all fit with what Durante Jones would probably really like to do in a speed rush kind of guy, move him in. Cassius Howell maybe a little bit too expensive there. But with corner, I asked this question earlier.
just to add to that point too, real quick before we move on, the corner, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're
I
good.
mean, Odafe Owe is the only edge rusher signed beyond this season,
Absolutely.
technically, that's playable. Charles Omenihu 1 year deal. Dorrance Armstrong's on his last year. Caleb Von Chazon 1 year deal. All of those guys. So Dietrich Wise 1 year deal. So we need some edge rushers for the future. To your point about like we can't just keep looking at the positions that we need as far as what we need 2026
Right.
only. We need to look beyond that.
Absolutely, because they're doing the same thing, right? And so I think those guys would all fit in well. And with this corner room, I asked, what did Minnesota have at corner last season? And I'm not saying that Durante Jones believes that they can do that every single year, but it might be the one position that they say is the receiving end of what we do pressure-wise to do really well. And so there's a space where they could not go corner and just say we're going to invest heavily in the front seven and being able to apply pressure to benefit those corners. So I do think we're looking at wide receiver or linebacker / edge, because I do think that Arvil Reese would absolutely be a cheat code for Durante Jones, and being able to line up in the A gap, B gap, C gap, being able to line up anywhere on D line, be able to get after the rusher, and also he's a phenomenal linebacker in coverage and in blitzing and setting the edge. So I think Arvil Reese would be the absolute dream. Would love David Bailey. Would love Cassius Howell. Ruben Bain is a little bit different. I just think that he could be utilized differently. I'm not sure if he'd be maximized in this sort of defense. I know Dan Quinn likes the bigger guys, thicker guys, but I don't think Durante Jones is drinking that milk, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Ruben Bain's more like a 3-4 defensive end, essentially playing almost like a 4-3 defensive tackle like role, to where his job is to make, the Odafe Owe and Caleb Von Chazon on his outside shoulder better. And I think he could do a great job at that. But I think a lot of people are picturing Ruben Bain in this defense as being the guy furthest away from the center. And he wouldn't necessarily, he'd be more so competing with like a Dietrich Wise or maybe even like a Javon Kinlaw for like that sort of defensive end sort of position right there.
I'm with you. Do you have anything to add on that, Corey?
I'm right with you.
I know you're looking at the clock.
No, I ain't looking at the clock.
All right, boys. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you two gentlemen enough. It's been a long time coming through for me. Goody had to take care of his family. He let me know last minute. Reed's got a gig, and Hull, I'm sure, is passed out by now. Because as soon as past 8:30, he's ticking time bomb at that point until he passes out. If anybody knows Hall, you know that's a true statement. I can't thank you boys enough. Coming through and carrying the weight for me, helping me out a little bit with this. I know the Colonel's going to be ecstatic to see Street Scores on here as always. But before we get out of here, boys, do you like to plug your social media handles and your show? Street, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Yes. Street Scores. That's STREET SCORES. And for Twitter, Street Scores ATL. That's like the main social media. I'm on the other ones as well, but the Twitter one. To add to y'all point from way long ago, I think you said it as well, that you made a Twitter for your YouTube account, and that's literally why I made the YouTube account. And I was like, you know what, Twitter is the best place to get information. So that's typically where you can find me and contact me anyway.
My man, my Twitter was here long before the show started, but it ended up just becoming, like, I've been told by people to stop using it as your personal account. I'm like, dude, I started this from the ground roots. I'm just gonna do what I want. What about you, Corey? You want to plug your social media handle on your show, sir?
Yeah, you find me on social media at Sanchez405 on the Warpath.
Mr. 40K also.
Nah, I don't know about all that. I don't know. It's more like four minus K right now. I'll be back at it soon. Just like I said, getting everything together, and hopefully here in the next couple of days, I'll have something up, because like I said, it's 10 years this month, and I haven't done a video this month. So I'll probably have to do something here this weekend just to celebrate those 10 years, because it's been fun. So, but as always, Kyle, I appreciate it, brother.
Of course. And you and I got to talk. I want to possibly do a play-by-play in the upcoming season. Maybe we could test it out on preseason games.
I know a guy. Not me, but I know a guy.
No, I think you and I will do pretty well. But boys, I can't thank you enough. To everyone watching, if you made it this far, you're a freaking champion. I appreciate you all. Have a great night. Corey, God bless you. Go get some rest, my man. Sleep as much as you can. Give your well wishes to your family for me. Street,
sir.
you're the man. You as well, brother. Keep doing the great stuff that you're doing and leading on as one of the kings of the Commanders' Corners, of course. But appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Be safe. Have a great weekend. Have fun. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.